200 trees this spring, graft.
Okay, I'm going to call the January 22nd Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. Roll call, we have Selectman Howdy Goodwin, Mike Manzalilli, Mackenzie Jewett, Jamie Thurlow, myself, Kevin Buck, Town Manager Chris Saunders, Town Clerk Katie Danduran, members of the public and the press. Adoption of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes? Okay, approval of minutes. We have the minutes of January 7th, 2019.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of January 7th, 2019.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of January 7th, 2019. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, approval of warrants. We have warrant 76 for $10,692.19. Warrant number 77 for $1,853.50. Warrant 78 for $9,643.01. Warrant 79 for $715. And warrant number 80 for $83,740.95.
I'll make a motion to approve warrants 76 through 80.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve warrants 76 through 80. Any discussion? All those in favor? Financial reports.
All right, nothing too exciting going on, different from the July through November reports, but here we are, July through December, 50% of the way through the year. Just some highlights that I wanted to bring up from what I wrote in the memo. In the Harbor Fund, the transient float fees are running much higher than what we expected for the year. This is obviously a good thing. This revenue stream is a nice benefit for the Harbor Fund. Looking at it, I'm guessing we've raised about $7,500 in transient float fees so far this year. So I'm guessing it'll end up about $15,000 overall for the year, which we only budgeted to receive $2,000. So that's a really nice, and that's, largely because the Justin built those 6 new floats, and we had never had those floats out before. So this was really the first year, so we didn't know what to put in. In any case, we're now, Justin has been costing out what it would take to build some more floats and what kind of capacity we have, because if it's just a moneymaker, then why not maximize that opportunity? So that's great. On the expense side, the assessor's maps and billing line went up by $2,000 since last month. This is because we have those new tax maps, which are the first time they've been redone since 2014. If you want to see these fancy new maps, they're available at the office. They're also on the website. And on the miscellaneous expenses, there's a negative expense of $1,603. Our auditors are here tonight. I doubt they'll bring up this one thing, but I'll just, in case you see it and are wondering why we have a negative expense there. That's just a refund from fiscal years 17 and earlier. These are expenses that were posted, but then, and checks were likely written, but whoever received the checks just never cashed them, or it's unclear exactly why these funds were posted, but then never actually dispersed. It's not a huge amount, 1603, and no one's been knocking on our door for payment in the last 18 months. So at this point, we're just going to assume that it is what it is. And so they put the 1603 back into that expense line. On the public works budget, I debated for a while exactly how to write this, because I feel like I'm going to regret this later. But the very positive thing is that we're only at 35% of budgeted expenses for the year when we've budgeted, and we're 50% of the way through the year. So that with that in mind, we might want to think about if there's any unplanned major expenses that we want to take on this year. would they fit into that gap without pushing the public works line over budget? I don't think we're at any position right now to make even speculations as to what that will be, just because we're still only halfway through the year. I think this is a conversation for March or April. But, there's a lot of people come to me with a lot of ideas of things that we should be building.
How much money would you say is there approximately?
Well, if we're at 35% of the way through the public works budget, and the total public works budget is about $452,000, that means that we're at 225, right? We should have spent 225 right now, but we've actually spent 172. So that's $40,000, and there might be more.
We could always put it into like a reserve.
And we can always put it into a reserve and save it up for future years, which
That
is a
might-
perfectly valid thing to do.
That's
Yeah, let's see what we got.
Yep, exactly. But I mentioned it now. The Hillrest survey was finalized and the expenses in there. There's an agenda item tonight to sell our first lot in Hillrest in many, many years. So that's great news. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention was in the solid waste budget, we changed the name of one of the accounts. It was called PERC Trash Incineration. We haven't been with PERC for quite a while, and so we just changed that line to tipping fees. Tipping fees is just the term for the tonnage that you drop, you send to landfill or eventually to fiber right. And so if you're looking at an old report and comparing it to this one, that line changed names. Otherwise, that's all I got for you.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thanks, Chris.
Do you want to make a motion?
Um,
I'll make a motion to accept the July through December 2018 financial reports as presented by the town manager.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the July to December 2018 financial reports as presented by the town manager. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, regular business. We have our fiscal year 18 audit. I see Mr. Wadman's here with us.
Yes, thank you for having us tonight. Kelly Bowden is with me, and you may recognize Kelly from working here year in and year out for a number of years, managing the audit, drafting the report, and so forth. So she's with me this evening in case we get into any detailed questions that I may not be able to answer. She can hopefully help us through that information. Also giving you a handout to follow along with some of the pages that are more important in this package that you have, the audit package. The report is 59 pages this year, and these reports just keep growing. The GASB, or the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, they like to publish statements in these last several years, which just keep piling on the requirements for your disclosure. The report this year grew by 8 pages, and it's basically related to one particular GASB statement, which relates to post-employment benefits. So there's several new pages of notes and some new financial information in the report related to that. And this report, 15 years ago was probably 25 or 30 pages. Now we're up to 59 pages with all this new information. We presented over in Bar Harbor their audit a couple of weeks ago. Their report, I think, increased by about 15 pages as a result of these post-employment benefit disclosures. So next year, there'll be a new statement coming out related to lease disclosures, but it won't be as involved as this year. But on pages 1 and 2, we have our opinion letter, right behind the table of contents, and this is where we express our opinion on the financial statements that follow. We have an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion again this year on the financial statements. And if we didn't follow through on all these GASB statements and keep all this stuff up to date, we wouldn't be able to issue you your clean opinion saying that you have a fair presentation here. So that's kind of what we have to stay up on and do our training on and everything. And we certainly don't expect you folks to be right up on this information, so we help you along in that process. Beginning on page 3 and continuing through page 7 is the management's discussion and analysis. And this is where, in these 5 pages here, you can read through this information and really pick up on the financial highlights, excuse me, for the fiscal year. It kind of pulls it all into a narrative format versus reading financial statements that go on and on. In the middle of page number 3 is the fund highlights paragraph. If you can pick that right out of the middle of the page here. And it says that the town ended the fiscal year with total combined ending fund balances of $2,336,653. And of that, $481,732 is your unassigned fund balance. So that's your surplus balance here. That represents approximately 8% of your expenses for the year. The handout I gave to you compares you folks for the last 3 years and also compares you to some other municipalities. These are all June year ends. And you can see both in terms of dollars and as a percentage of your expenses, you can compare yourself for the last 3 years, and you compare yourself, we include here Bar Harbor, Castine, and Trenton, where they're running with their unassigned fund balance. Now, you've been growing your surplus balance by approximately $100,000 these past couple of years. You can see you've gone from 281, now you're up to 481 this year. So you've been growing at a rate of approximately 100,000 per year, and as a percentage of your expenses, you've been growing at about 1.5%. So you've gone from 5 up to 8 these past couple of years. So you're moving closer to that recommendation that we're often asked, what should we have? And we quote the Maine Municipal Association that says you should have a minimum of 10 to 12%. So you can see you're moving closer to that number. You're still a little shy of Castine, who's at 83%. But
Wow.
you're heading in the direction that, will help your cash flow, and so forth, so that, when you have unforeseen expenses, or just, it helps eliminate the need to borrow funds to pay bills while you're anticipating tax money coming in. So definitely heading in the right direction here. Any questions before we continue on? Yes.
I'd just like to say this is a very nice, crisp, neat format.
Well, thanks. Thank you. We've got while we're on this, we can look at the second page here, the bottom. We've got a couple of graphs on the second page here, the bottom half of that page, which talks about debt service also. We're often asked, when we present audits, do we have too much debt? Are we in any danger as far as violating any state statutes or anything along that line? And you can see that you're definitely on the lower side. I mean, Trenton doesn't have any debt at all, but both in terms of dollars and as a percent of your state valuation, you're well below what the state statutes allow. I mean, as an absolute maximum, depending on the various things you may have in your town, you don't have, water and wastewater departments and things of that nature. So, 10% or less of your state valuation and you're fine, and you're at, well below that. You're not even at 0.5% of your state valuation. So. And even, Castine, they have a lot of surplus, they have a lot of debt also, as you can see if you look at the chart here, but they're still below 3.25% of the state valuation. So, it's surprising how much debt you're actually allowed to have by state statutes. Well, let's see, the notes to the financial statements. Basically, the way the reports are set up, and you're required to be set up, you've got your opinion letter, which we talked about, the manager's discussion and analysis on pages 3 through 7 that we talked about, and then financial statements pick up on page 8 through 13, I believe, or 14. So this is all required ordering and format for your financial statements as dictated by the GASB. So we have to keep them right in this order and in this format. That way, if you're looking at financial statements for the town of Tremont, and you want to look at another municipality, they really follow this very same order. The notes begin on page 15, and they go all the way through page 37. So you get 22 pages of notes to the financial statements. And there's all kinds of information in there related to the accounting policies that the town follows. There's information in here on cash and deposits. On page number 21, there's a pretty nice summary of your various fund balances the town has. So you might want to earmark that page to look at, individual fund balances versus looking all over the place through financial statements. They're all kind of summarized here. Pages 28 through 32 talk about pension plan disclosures, which was new a couple years ago. And then picking up on page 32 and going all the way through page 37 are 5 new pages of notes related to post-employment benefits. So we've got 10 pages added just to the notes of the financial statements these last couple of years related to, the Maine Public Employees Retirement System and the Maine Municipal Employees Health Trust and the benefits that are paid out related to, retiree benefits, basically for health and life insurance and retirement plans. On page number, let's see, did I mark that page? 39. So what we have on page 39 is a required disclosure on the Maine Public Employees Retirement System and the net pension liability. Not only the net pension liability for the entire plan, but the town's estimated portion of that pension liability. So if we look in the far left-hand column, fiscal year ended June 30th, 2018, the second line down, proportionate share of net pension liability, $67,543. That is the town's estimated share, and it relates to school department. The teachers and so forth there at the school department that participate in the plan. If you continue down to where the double underline is, this is the total net pension liability for the entire plan, the state employee and teacher plan for the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. And the net liabilities, in other words, the difference between the estimated payout over the lives of all the participants and the assets in the plan is this liability, which is approximately $2.6 billion. So, and it's a pretty scary number. It has gone in a positive direction this year. If you jump to the next column, it was 3.1 billion a year ago. So there's a combination of additional contributions going in, both on behalf of the school department paying in more because they keep creeping the rates up that you contribute to that, and also the retirement system contributing more at the state level. So there's more money going in, and then investment returns, investment values of the investment portfolio have increased in the past year. So the combination of those two items have brought this pension liability down some. And you may have heard me say in years past that even though this is a substantial amount of money, it's actually one of the healthier retirement plans around the country. Some of them are just much, much worse than this. Then that gets allocated out amongst all the participants, and it makes everybody's financial statements look terrible. So this doesn't have too bad of an impact on the town's financial statements. Any questions on that before we continue on? Pages. Let's see. 44 through 47, actually up to 48. Probably some of the more useful pages for you in the report. Now we start to look at budget versus actual revenues on page 44. And then pages 45, 46, and 47, we're looking at your expenses budget versus actual. So this is taking your final budget and comparing it to your actual on both the revenue side and the expense side. And really breaking things into more detail by department. And you can see on the revenues, page 44, the far right-hand column, the bottom of the page, we have a figure here, 31,293. So that's your overall favorable revenue variance. So that's revenues collected in excess of budget. Expenses, again, on pages 45, 46, and 47. If we look over at page 47, the far right-hand column, bottom line, $74,711. That's your favorable budget variance on the expense side. So in other words, expenses came in that much lower than budget overall. And then on page number 48 is where we analyze your change in surplus. Picking that up in the middle of the page, those two budget surpluses that I just mentioned total $106,004, which is your increase in surplus for the year. There was no budgeted use of fund balance to reduce taxation or anything along that line this year. So it's basically the difference between budget and actual revenues and expenses will either increase or decrease your surplus. And you got a nice $106,000 increase this year. So that, I think that's everything I have. So if anybody has any other questions for us.
Looks good.
That figure was somewhat tied into that unrestricted fund number that we saw earlier, right?
That's exactly,
Okay.
yeah, that
I was wondering where,
$481,000.
that seemed high, that's why I was wondering.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Looks like we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, good job, Chris.
Yeah.
And I don't, anything you want to add?
There were just a few extra days spent going over different accounting stuff. Like some of your accounts got moved into separate funds this year, which created a lot of confusion on the accounting side. So we had to spend some extra time going through that information. So hopefully we're going in the right direction for this year.
So, and the process involves, with the audit, we do the town end of things, and we're in the superintendent's office doing the school end of things. We tie things together, which seems like it would be very simple, but there's just a tremendous amount of transactions that go through the school department. And, so there's a matter of, that all affects your accounting records here. So it's a matter of reconciling all that and pulling the reports together so that the fund balances for the school, and they have all kinds of fund balances there as well. They've got their general operating fund, but then they have grant funds and hot lunch program and things like that, and reserve funds, and that all has to basically roll into this report. So it's we're basically gonna be able to wrap up the school end of things before we can finalize the town end of things. So there's a lot of moving parts anyway, and a lot of changes, and we just do our best to keep up with it and keep you aware of them as well. So, with a new town manager and new staff in the office and so forth, so we try to make sure you understand what's going on at the same time.
No, thanks.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
definitely.
Any other
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well,
Thank
thank you all for
very
your
much.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There's a draft motion.
There's,
I'll make a motion to accept and file the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018, and to thank Mr. Wadman for attending this evening.
second?
And you too.
It's been moved and seconded to accept and file the audited financial reports for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018, and to thank Mr. Wadman and Brenda, correct? Kelly, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Terrible. for attending the meeting this evening. Any discussion? All in favor? Sorry, Kelly. Municipal energy priorities resolution. Let's see, we've done that. I can't find it, but I know I read it. It looks good. Oh, there it is. Anyone have any comments? I'll make a motion.
Are you guys good?
I just waiting for that.
Okay.
I make a motion to sign the municipal energy priorities resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to sign the municipal energy priorities resolution. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, cemeteries. We have a new or modified, updated, I guess, price list for the cemeteries. And I think you're doing the sale, yeah, I'll get that separate. Everyone had a chance to look at the rates and happy with this?
Good to me.
Me too.
It's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Other than a couple minor changes.
Adding 4 spaces and 5 spaces.
Great.
Now I'll make a motion to repeal all the current cemetery rates and set the rates for the plots in Fly, Hillrest, Kelly, Rich, and Head of the Harbor cemeteries as shown in a document titled Cemetery Lots and Prices, January 2019.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded to repeal all current cemetery rates and set the rates of plots in Fly, Hillrest, Kelly, Ridge, and Head of the Harbor cemeteries as shown in the document titled Cemetery Lots and Prices, January 2019. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, fiscal year 20 committee and fire department requests. First, we have the fire department. So explain that to us, Steve. What do you got planned?
Well, from what I just heard a few minutes ago, you have a lot of extra surplus.
Yeah, but you didn't get the part where we're short.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like $106,000 up the grab. But,
We're still at only 8%. actually.
Steve beat us.
basically, there's two things. It's our annual budget request, which is, I can't remember, 3%, 3%, 2.9%?
4.3%.
That sounds better. It says right here, so last year I think was a little bit higher than last year's expenses, but, and we just went briefly in there, this is gonna try to do a little more professional development and just, cost of operations, some regular heating bill and phone bill and all that stuff seems to stay the same, but, it's contract out a lot of services like clothes testing, and I items like that, that we just do not have the personnel to do them. So, I don't know. If you had any specific questions, I think, like any of those.
Looks pretty reasonable. I mean, there's nothing in here that I really question.
Now, certainly you don't have
Yeah.
a huge surplus at the end of
Mike
the year.
already stole mine, look.
We do accept donations, we're 70th year of being a private company. So it's not a huge money, it's not a- some people send in $23, some send in $250, but that offsets, believe it or not, that offsets a lot of these expenses and costs. And if someone does send a donation for a specific reason, and we try, like, rescue we had just a year ago, yesterday or something. Some people have donated money for that, and we put that money specifically into rescue equipment or that type of thing. I would just, I think Brad Reed started the premises that if someone donated something, then we don't try to apply that to the electrical bill and the gas bill, try to use town funds for that. And allocate donations for significant purposes.
How are you guys on recruitment now? Are you up from last year or down for volunteers?
It's, our meetings were about as well attended as yours.
Yeah.
You gotta stop making them jump in the ocean.
Yeah, that's right. So, there's an abundance of qualified people in the community. It's just, finding, a way that they can make the time to
Mhm.
be there.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but it's statewide, island-wide, so no surprise for Sean, but it makes it harder for me to pick a date to retire.
Okay, you have a paragraph and you're talking about planning for future. Have you got anything specific in mind, or is that just?
So, I mean, we all know how but good point being is I don't know what the department's condition, as Jamie just mentioned, in 10 years, 15 years, but I know the way we're replacing our equipment, actually the next truck we get, which we 3 years, 2.5 years out, keep them all under the 30 years, we're gonna have to do a lot of shuffling and moving around to make them fit within the buildings that we have. And we knew that. We know it was 18 years, and that 18 years came up really quick. But I think with reducing our personnel and if we can adjust equipment and stuff around, that we can probably drag out a few more apparatus cycles. But I don't think 70 years, I mean, the station has been modified 3-4 times, I think, in the last 70 years. So we have to make an honest decision about whether, we redo that station, relocate it. But I don't have a mirror ball, a glass ball, I guess, to see what's gonna be 10, 15 years in the future. I personally see that the town gets out of the snow plowing business and we just occupy that building, but that's my opinion. But, hey, I mean, we don't know. I mean, I wish I could tell you. There's other properties available in the town. The department actually owns the lot across from the station and the station lot. And, I'll let whoever's in charge or at the desk 10, 15 years out, but we do need to start saving and planning on it. My thought, just like anyone else, it's, everybody has different opinions, I guess, but I think if we start, especially after just hearing Mr. Wadman, if we start planning our expenses now, then when we get there, we're not trying to find a solution for funding later. And it does kind of add to our savings and available funds to grab, but I would prefer to see that the funds are there, and then if an opportunity comes up, we can take advantage of it, or grants or funding or joint things, instead of trying to find the money when we get there.
Makes sense.
I don't know what you guys' thoughts are, we're completely open. We gotta start somewhere.
I think that's a good idea. Have that money saved up. Oh, yeah.
Does the town own the fire station or the fire department?
I find there's a private company.
Yeah, and it owns the station on the land, that's what I was trying to remember. That's what I thought.
And just, kind of always been that way.
Yeah.
The town has supported the funding and maintenance and upkeep of the buildings as part of the one that's included in the annual budget, but there was also a few occasions over the last 50 years when the town has contributed funds to rebuild the Seal Cove station and the addition to the station. I think it was $75,000, but that was requested and granted to the department. So it's still
Sounds good to me. I'll make a motion to accept the budget request of the Tremont Volunteer Fire Department for $86,150.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to tentatively accept the budget request of the Tremont Volunteer Fire Department for $86,150. Any discussion? All those in favor? Let's see what we can do. Put some money away for you. hopefully.
Now's the time to plan.
Yeah, I do too.
If you would like me to include that in the budget presentation that I'm giving to you on March 4th for that reserve fund, then it would be helpful if you requested that in the motion.
You guys think, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think it's a good idea. Do we put a dollar amount to it this year or just,
It would certainly help me in my drafting if I had a dollar amount to put in there.
do the 50?
Well, let's take a shot at it and see what the budget
See
looks
what-
You
like.
can use the word tentatively.
Yeah, maybe we can modify it. We need to keep really irritates us. We can cut it down.
That's what I'm here for.
You know.
50? Is that what you guys said?
I think so too.
Over how many, what are you thinking out? I'm just trying to do the math as far as you think 10 years, just say 10 plus.
Jamie, I don't know.
Yeah.
You could probably easily spend 500,000 on a
Oh,
fire
yeah.
department.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I
That's
think
why I
this
was
should
just,
be a
Probably more than that.
significant Start,
yes.
but I don't think we'll have a huge surplus if that's your concern.
Yep, okay.
You know, just a standard residential home.
Yeah, no, I know.
Do you want heat and everything?
What's that?
You want heat and all
Yeah.
that too? Electricity?
Electricity.
One year, the warrant committee did ask us to turn our heat down.
Oh my gosh.
And we like room temperature water when we arrive.
Sounds good.
Do you need a motion? Yes?
That would be helpful.
Create a,
I was drafting a motion, I might say to tentatively request the town manager to create a fire, what did you call it, Keith? A fire building reserve?
Fire station replacement fund.
A fire station replacement fund and to budget $50,000.
as Mackenzie just said.
What he said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to request the town manager to add a fire station replacement fund to the budget being, the fiscal year 20 budget being prepared in the amount of $50,000. That sound right?
That sounds great.
Any discussion? All those in favor? I think that's the motion.
Yes, exactly.
And Howdy, did you second that?
There you go.
I think it's good to plan ahead like
Well, I
that.
do.
Again, it's the right time to do it.
Okay, next up, Bass Harbor Memorial Library. Hi, Pete.
Before we get into the budget stuff, just want to let everybody know that the library, which has been closed since before Christmas, reopens tomorrow at Pacific Hall with a bunch of books. All the kids' books are there. And the only problem we've got is we can't, Consolidated Communications couldn't get us internet service tomorrow, but they promised us within 2 weeks. So anyway, that's the news on that front. Our budget request is a 2.9% increase from the general fund. And that's all in personnel services. So it's basically straightlining what we've done before. And we plan basically the same program. The only question is gonna be, when do we open? This budget starts July 1st. We're hoping we can be open with new boards with a new expansion by then.
If I may just add to that, you mentioned the 2.9% as a benchmark. The Social Security Administration announced a cost of living adjustment of 2.8% for all Social Security recipients for fiscal year 20. And so that is what my goal is to keep our budget aligned with that number. And
So you're 10% high.
that was not my intent.
Oh, I thought-
I'm just giving you a benchmark.
I make a motion to tentatively accept the budget request of the library for the fiscal year 20 budget of $64,438.71.
Second,
So moved and seconded to tentatively accept the budget request for the Beth Hubbard Memorial Library in the amount of $64,438.71. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the rec board.
So,
Thank you, Jeff.
so Jeff isn't able, Jeff Watson, who's the chair of the rec board, was not able to be here tonight. I attended the meeting in which they drafted their budget, and of course, so did Jed. And so any questions you can ask either of us. The only addition that I'll make from what they asked me to put forward is that the portable toilets line, I've been drafting the Wharf, Harbor, and Seal Cove budgets and really want the Seal Cove budget to break even. I mean, I want all of them to break even. And the portable toilets weekly rental fee went up by about $8 this year over last year per week. And for most of the funds, they have such a big budget that they can easily absorb that kind of thing. But the Seal Cove budget is very small. It's like a few $1,000s a year. And so because of that increase, I couldn't make the budget balance. And in discussing it, so this has not been brought to the Harbor Committee or anything, but my thought is that Seal Cove portable toilet is used equally by recreational users, people who are just down there painting, launching kayaks, etc., and commercial users. And so I thought it would be reasonable to split the cost of that toilet, half of it into the rec board budget and half of it into the Seal Cove budget. And doing so allowed me to balance that Seal Cove budget. So it's increased by, this budget in front of you is increased by about $1,200 or so. So the final number, if you get to this point in making a motion, is $26,313.
So the contract services is all about that rebar.
And that $18,000 is the rebar removal.
can you explain the internet service?
Yeah, the community building has a security camera that's always running, and we can stream it at the town office. And so if there's ever damage to the community building, as there has been in the past, we can go back and see what happened. But in order to operate that camera, it has to have an internet connection.
Is the vending machine making money yet?
It is, well, is it breaking even? No. But is it it is receiving money.
Oh, so it's not breaking
It is not yet broken
That's
even.
making money.
Sorry, I should, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was curious.
Hasn't been there during the summer.
No,
No, no, I
exactly.
just was curious how it
The
worked.
total cost, because of that was $555 for the plug and then $200 for the first batch of bottles that went in. And it's made $150 to $200 so far. So that's not bad considering it's been there in October, November, December.
Right, no,
So,
the summer, it will
yeah.
be much different, I'm sure. And you had to put that under, I know we talked about this before, but
Yep.
this is where that rebar.
The rebar.
Or should be
I
correctly.
This is my financial opinion. It's every justification that I've heard for the rebar is for kids who are playing on it
Mhm.
or kids who are playing on those rocks.
Yep.
That's a recreation activity. That's not
Yep.
a road
Yeah.
activity.
Yeah.
And that's
I
not a commercial
Harbor.
use
Yeah.
activity.
Mhm.
So I've
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Is the parking going to get plowed for the skating rink? I noticed it hasn't been this storm.
I will make a point of asking about that tomorrow. I know that has been that's not in the middle of the storm is not as high a priority,
No,
but
no, no.
certainly at this point
Yeah.
it would be.
It's going to be fun right now.
Yeah.
Dynamite.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's planned to keep it plowed, right?
Yes, that's certainly the plan.
Yeah.
I know that because of the nature of this storm with all of that ice, if they weren't able to get to it during the storm, Jimmy's got to go down there with the backhoe to break up some of the ice.
Yeah.
And so,
Give it a day.
I know he did.
Soften
I
up,
know.
yeah.
yeah, I know he had to do that on one road today. So he might be on his plan to do tomorrow already.
Where's that, Chris?
What's that?
Where's that?
Well, we're talking about at the ice skating rink, but the road that he had to do today was Leffingwell.
I see him out down that way.
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be too bad to clear that, but it'd be nice to get it done.
Yeah.
Right now, that would be rough on anything.
Mhm.
Good to me.
You said the total on that was 26,313.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to tentatively accept the budget request of the Tremont Recreation Board in the amount of $26,313.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to tentatively accept the budget request of the rec board in the amount of $26,313. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, item E, deer hunting. Discussion opening Tremont to deer hunting. This was you, Mike?
I was just wondering how we ended up to this point and, I guess getting some public input.
What one?
Not having it, I guess. I'd asked Chris because I had some citizens that had asked me about it in the community, and I just figured I would look into it, see what was, so Chris did some research and I researched it as well.
Yeah, I know it's come up a few times. It's never seemed to get a lot of support or
There was a committee.
slightly less than
For a
majority usually is. You know, it's been traditional, but I mean, I think we can always open it up. Obviously, there's plenty of deer.
I think we talked about it when I was first, be about 3 years ago, when I was first on the
Yeah.
board. I think it was the end of the discussion at that point, but it was down to, no one could think of couldn't or didn't think there was a good solution to how we could go about it, or I think the two things that were left at that point was either hiring someone,
A sharpshooter.
a company to come in and do the work for us, or I think the other idea was just for property owners in the town to have X amount of tags to do on their own personal property, so we wouldn't have to worry about people, coming in and not knowing where houses are behind other houses and, and so forth. But I think that's where
Does
discussion ended
the
then.
state, I mean, how's this? for some reason, if I remember right, it was Cranberry or Islesford opened it up. And it was like for the first few years they had to allow non-residents too, but I'm not sure.
Mhm.
That's what someone had told me.
Well, as far as I know. I
For
don't think we
the
can
state
limit
for the
to
first
residents.
few years had to.
You can't?
Yeah, yeah, I don't think they could limit it all to only residents at any time, I believe.
Maybe that's what I vaguely remember, but
That's
it was,
yeah. I think if it's open, it has to be open. And that's it.
And if it's open, that means everybody in the world can come to Tremont?
yes,
and
yeah.
Shoot deer in your
With a
front
hunting
yard?
license.
Well, if they're not trespassing, I guess.
That's,
Well, even if we approve it, the state still needs to.
Still has to.
Yeah.
yeah.
I was at a League of Towns meeting today, and I asked this question since I know that other towns on the island have gone through this. Bar Harbor, their town manager was there, and he was describing some of their process. It happened right when he was starting there, so he wasn't totally fluent in it. But one of the things that the state did insist on was that there had to be some kind of study to determine the actual density of deer, and seems like any back to the envelope calculation would tell you that there's way more deer than in per square mile than what the habitat can sustain or should sustain. But nevertheless, their experience was that you got to study it.
I don't know, they all look pretty healthy, the ones I've seen, so they seem to be doing pretty well. I mean,
Well, it's not that the deer aren't healthy; it's that I think the habitat, that the ecosystem in which they're in, is less healthy because they're so dense.
that could well be.
This last snowstorm, there were two been on the road, just on Tremont Road, one by your house, and then one by Bernard Corner. They've been both hit, I'd say, laying in the road.
Yeah, there's no question.
There's absolutely no shortage of them.
No, there's no shortage in between accidents and, Lyme disease,
It's not
ticks and
constant
stuff.
foreign
Obviously,
cars.
that's a concern for everyone, so.
I've had 2 employees get it.
So I spoke with the state biologist since I wrote this memo. He called on Friday afternoon, and he said that it would be helpful from their end in researching the possibilities and what the process would look like if they had guidance from you as to what are the parameters that you would be comfortable seeing a hunt. So would you want a sharpshooter situation? Would you want an open hunt limited to a certain time of the year? Would you want what limitations do you want to place on this?
I'd like to find out if you can do residents only, in my opinion, if you
Yeah. that's what it is.
if you cannot do residents only, then I wouldn't want to see it.
Okay.
I can say the same thing.
I agree 100%. I
And-
don't want to see an open hunting season.
No.
And if you can't, then you should have a
Yep.
sharpshooter.
I think.
Somebody would end
Keith
up
wants
shot.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I just couldn't know shoot, let's just say my grandfather probably shot more deer than any of us on Mount Desert Island, maybe even Canada. You can vote that. But, no, there's certainly a need to reduce the deer population.
Mhm.
But I think if it was like a deer management program instead of a hunting program, but my only thought would be that maybe you could form a committee and maybe the select men be on the committee so Chris isn't doing it all himself. To try to develop some type of, or send out, I think before you guys sent out a card.
Mhm.
You can see the poll
Yeah.
people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want someone from Bar Harbor coming over to Tremont shooting at me.
I'd actually be really uncomfortable with someone carrying high-powered rifles around.
Yeah, I know,
I think Cranberry limited it to archery and shotguns.
That was the other parameter that I was going to ask: is what sort of weapons would you want to
Shotgun
permit?
only. I
Shotgun or arrow.
I mean, this
I don't
morning,
say
I
no,
witnessed
but
a
when
large
I-
flock destroying one of my trees in my front yard, and I don't think that's right.
Nothing to do with all the salt licks and bait around there.
So then, if in your draft motion, you could just add to the end of it after how to open the town to deer hunting for resident, if you wanted for residents only, for what kind of weapons, if you want to be,
How about
add your restrictions at
how
the
about
end there.
unlimited terms?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think,
Just kind of define those.
sure. But for my own sake, so when I'm talking with them, because they're gonna ask what kind of limited terms. It sounds like resident only and shotgun /
Yes.
archery.
Shotgun.
Yes.
Do you care about times of the year? Like,
It should be during what the state guidelines are,
Yeah.
I suppose. Was that, what do you think?
Yeah, probably September through November.
How about something like, what do they call the, you can get a permit if they're, I don't care what the term is.
Nuisance.
deer.
Hmm.
Nuisance deer permits. How about if we open that up?
you can already get nuisance deer permits
Yeah.
on MDR. But
I know
beside the
so
point.
there's several places that I've worked at that people have gotten them.
I'm wondering if there wouldn't be some way to make that a little bit broader and have that work, and
Yeah,
that would kind of automatically limit the residents.
because I think now you have to have had a fence up right around your stuff to get a nuisance. You know
Yeah,
how
it's
they,
just get a lot harder now.
yeah, I think there's quite a few.
Yeah, I wonder if there'd be some way
Like
to
a deed or
loosen
something.
that up, and
Yeah.
that would be a little easier to keep a handle on it. I don't know, maybe look into that.
Okay. I will ask about nuisance and I'll limit it to resident only. Shotgun archery, and you said September to November? Is that a, would you,
Whatever what's the
Whatever.
regular
How
hunting
how about
season?
concurrent with
Well,
state hunting
archery
season?
starts in September, I think, and
Just go by the states.
okay, so
yeah, it would.
whatever the state recommends for
Yes.
this season. Okay. So you don't have strong feelings on the time of year.
And then if they say no to the resident thing, do we want to look into a shark
I
or
would.
whatever you want to call it, look hiring a company to
So somebody would just come down and just
Feel
shoot
about that
all the
one.
deer?
Right.
Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm thinking, is that-
Yeah, okay.
Kinda-
They're professionals.
It should be given away to needy people and
Gotcha.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Most of us do our deer hunting with pickups, Chris.
Or Hondas.
Or Hondas.
Apparently, that's not a large enough caliber. Caliber.
So is there a motion?
Um,
So what did you want to add to the end of that too?
So if you want to limit it, if you want to say for residents only and for shotgun and archery, that would give me the ammunition I need to take to the state. Okay.
Ooh.
Got jokes. Okay, I'll make a motion to request the town manager research how to open the town of Tremont to deer hunting for residents only, using shotgun and archery and through September to November.
Second,
Been moved and seconded to request the town manager to research how to open the town of Tremont to deer hunting for residents only, using only shotgun and archery, September through November. I think that was it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Someplace in this office, there is a folder that
Yeah.
had, I mean, there was
Yeah,
a
we-
committee years ago, and I don't really.
We
think-
found it. It was
Probably
more,
pretty
I
big.
didn't want to take a deep dive until I had
Yeah.
a motion from you, but now I do. And so
And-
now I will take a deep dive.
Might not be worth diving into, must be worth starting completely over.
So, starting.
Yeah.
Okay, item F, smoke-free policy. We have sample signs and I personally don't have a problem putting the signs up. I think the policy sounds fine as written. I don't know how effective it's going to be, but
I personally don't care for the signs. I think my intent, if anything, was to maybe put up some signs. I'd rather pay for the signs, I think, out of the town's money and get written on there what I was trying to get for a message, maybe just, I don't know how to word
This,
it, but.
this town promotes a smoke-free area or something.
What's that?
This town promotes a smoke-free area?
Yeah, especially like with kids around and stuff like that, that we promote not necessarily that don't smoke here, but just use courtesy when younger citizens are around and in the area. Something.
Something that sends a little bit more of a message.
You can find a sign.
Yeah, well, I know, that's what I was thinking, if we could do.
Something that sends a little bit more of a message than just a cigarette with a line through it.
Yeah, no, just because I think we all pretty much agreed that we were looking out for kids and, you know.
I think you're right.
These are the only signs that they'll do?
Correct.
Okay.
Can we, I mean, we could ask you to talk to them and see if they would be willing to do something a little bit different, maybe?
No,
But then-
I think like Jamie said, even if they don't, the town could probably afford a couple signs.
Mm.
And I mean, there aren't that many areas where we put them, the skating rink. And, I don't know, maybe the hiking trail, where everything's going on there. Town wharf, I think it's pretty questionable how effective that is, or that's what it's doing myself.
I don't know if putting that up there is gonna,
Maybe, inside Justin's hut or something like that.
I mean, I think it's a great idea to not have people smoke there, but I don't think it's gonna be something that anyone's gonna follow through with.
I don't think we need to make them violation of an ordinance if
Yeah.
it's not. I guess it's policy anyway.
What do you guys think about the whole policy?
What's your input, Jamie?
I know, I just,
I think the policy's fine. I agree, the signs are ugly, but.
yeah,
And it's a policy. I mean, it's not like somebody's gonna be standing out there policing it and, making you toss out your cigarette. Or I think maybe, I don't know.
but have we ever had a complaint? That's my thing. Have we ever had a complaint at the town office or anywhere
Well,
that?
who's gonna call the town office and say, Joey was down there smoking?
Yeah, no,
Even
I
though they're
know.
not really
Yeah,
gonna.
It's true.
yeah, no,
They might. I mean,
just-
people call here for sillier things probably. So you're right, it might happen, but.
I just didn't want to go after a problem that doesn't exist. That's all,
Right.
That's true
something
too. Yeah,
before.
that's true.
That's what when I was looking at it, after I read through everything, did a little research on it, I just thought if we wanted to do anything, I think it would be more effective than anything, just to put some signs up, just to, and not.
I think we don't even need to do a policy, just putting the signs up alone would say that we as a town think this isn't right. We don't want our kids smoking.
Yeah, we don't want our, younger citizens to be smoking. Please refrain from smoking when around them and,
I
I
don't
mean,
have a problem making a proper policy, the town behind. I think that's fine. I agree. The signs, limit where they are.
mhm.
If a redesign would be fine. I don't have any problem having a policy for that, anyway, especially if it's nothing we're gonna enforce. It's just a general statement where we feel.
But it would be banning it in all town locations, right? I think. That's how this is written.
Unenforceable ban, I guess. Is that what that's saying?
I think if it was an ordinance, it would be a ban. I think it's more.
Is
This is
is
just a
smoking
suggestion.
smoking allowed in town vehicles now, Chris?
No, well, town employees are, no, they're not, are prohibited from smoking in town buildings and town vehicles. So
So they don't.
I won't say that they 100% never smoke in vehicles.
If we're not gonna allow people to smoke at the El Dorado, we probably shouldn't allow them to smoke in the town vehicles either.
They've all been reminded. I'm not sitting in.
They can have these signs on the
100% of the
dash.
time.
We'll take the signs, we'll just put these ones on the dash.
And I'm sure the school, obviously, they must have something
Yeah,
in their
I'm sure they
policy, yeah, that there's obviously no smoking on any school property whatsoever.
We don't have any signs out here, right? Don't we have a throw your cigarette butt in this thing as you walk through the front door?
Well, not
Yeah, we
by
have
the
a,
staffs, I guess.
exactly, yeah.
Do we have cigarette containers at any of the places that we're
Mhm.
stopping smoking?
There's there's disposal of, I believe there's a container at Seal Cove.
Isn't there one right here on the trail too?
Is it?
Is it trash?
There's only a trash can. I would have to, I really have to go around and look at each of
Go look
those
for it,
before I
see.
answer confidently. Sorry.
If we have that, then I think that's just my opinion. I think if it's not an issue, why mess with it? You know, if you have the collection bins or whatever in places and we haven't had any complaints. That's just my 2 cents. That's-
I definitely support putting some signs up. That's where I kind of stand right now. The policy, again, unless it's actually a written law, it's just a piece of paper, and who's gonna come into the town and ask for the copy of this? And if they do get it, it doesn't do anything for them. But the signs at least show that us as a town, we don't want people smoking in the public areas. I think Jamie's kind of right. I think this is just a piece of paper. Yeah, us putting signs on a post probably will speak a lot louder than this draft.
No, let's try signs
Okay.
first.
That's it.
It's up to you.
And I'm 100% with you. I mean, there's nothing worse than going somewhere and having somebody next to you smoke when you don't.
Yep.
It's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But the sign's gonna do more than any piece of paper ever will. That's just me.
Do you want to see if we can come up with a sign everyone's happy with?
Yeah, I definitely, I don't think these.
You want to
Can we,
take a look? I mean, can we drop that on their desk?
Yeah, no, I mean, we could all come up with some
These are
ideas
really-
and then come back to the next meeting with a handful of,
Yeah,
you know, to give
something-
to,
something.
yeah.
Chris, there's
Chris could have some.
graphics design up in Old Town. They do excellent no smoking signs, and they're really, really discreet. I've been in the guy's shop. He's got tons of them. And they don't, they're not super intrusive like these, but they get the message across.
Mhm.
And we could add some language to it that,
Yeah.
reflects we don't want children or adults smoking.
So I have 4 locations that are in the draft policy. Would you want signs at all 4 of those locations or at only
Yeah.
one of those or?
I think we should put them at all of them.
Yeah.
And if there's more to consider, we should think about that down the road too.
Sorry, I forgot. I know this has already been asked, but is there no smoking signs at the school?
I haven't personally made an
yes.
inventory, but I have to think
There must
I
be.
can't imagine. All right.
We want to make sure of that, though. That's one thing.
I know the PTO is gonna install them, but Emmy, the health teachers, that are their program, their health program, is
Mhm.
making the signage.
Do they still have a curriculum at the school, drug and cigarette and all that stuff to teach the children or no?
They don't have the DARE program through the sheriff's department, but Emmy does teach quite a decent program about smoking and the benefits and having a not smoking. But yeah, so we did discover that they do have, this is smoke-free zone or some little signs as you enter the building, but not over next to the community building, so. We could use the outside of the community building.
Could stick one there
So
too.
that's definitely one we should make
add the
sure
community
the
building.
community building definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Bridge contractor.
And then, what's the average cost of a sign where we have all these signs made up all the time? Just
$50.
Yeah, see, to me, I'd rather spend $50 a sign, get the message that we all feel we're comfortable with and
I think so.
in a
Yeah.
clear
I'd be willing to help
message.
you with some ideas on what we can put on there. Brainstorm, look and see what other communities have done.
Since it sounds like you're no longer interested in the policy, since you passed a motion last time requesting me to draft one, it would be helpful for historical reasons if we're looking back, if you pass a motion
To rescind it.
to rescind that, exactly.
Then I'll make a motion to rescind the draft smoking policy that was dated January 16th, 2019.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded to rescind the draft smoking policy. I can get your date on that.
160.
Yeah, January 16th. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? I just didn't keep it, guys. but- Okay. Planning board vacancies. I know we got a letter from Susan Snyder, and they plan on addressing it. I'm fine waiting until their next meeting and seeing what they come back with before we make a call on it. So it's open for discussion.
They're gonna meet about Scott Grierson.
Correct.
Can you explain the circumstances of that, Chris?
Yeah, this is a super confusing one, and so I can try to walk you through it as best I can. So there are two planning board members who are currently in violation of the attendance provision of the ordinance to establish the Tremont Planning Board. So if that ordinance is in your packets, I'll just read out the section. It says, a vacancy shall occur upon the resignation or death of any member, or when a member ceases to be a legal resident of the town, or when a member fails to attend 4 consecutive regular meetings, or fails to attend at least 75% of all meetings during the preceding 12-month period. So the first one I'll talk about is Linda Graham. She has attended less than 75% of meetings over the last 12 months. She's at about 60%. It is my understanding that she wishes to keep her seat and is making arrangements so that she was able to get up to that 75% mark in the future. And the planning board passed a motion at their last meeting to recommend that the select board waive the attendance provision of the ordinance. And so if you wish to do so, then there's a motion in your packet to do so.
That was for health reasons, if I'm not.
I don't want to. I feel like I would be encroaching on her privacy if I were to try to talk about her health.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, it's what it said in the packet, so.
Okay. I forgot if I put that in there. Okay.
She's gonna get a ride to meetings.
She's the understanding I have is that she's going to get a ride. Okay. Yes.
And the planning board wants her to stay there.
Yes, they passed the
There-
motion
okay.
recommending that you waive the attendance provision. In the case of Mr. Grierson, they have he has missed 4 consecutive regular meetings. And I think I put this in the packet as well. At their January 8th meeting, the planning board requested that I reach out to Mr. Grierson and ask when he is planning to return. He responded on January 14th and said in 2 months. So I don't know what the planning board is going to do with that. Their next meeting is on February 12th, and they'll be considering what to do at that point. If in the meantime, based on a strict reading of the ordinance, I believe that a vacancy exists. However, you have a policy for how you appoint people to committees, and that typically requires advertising and accepting applications and et cetera, et cetera. So it would take quite a while. It takes a few months to go through that process, and so.
There are other people that are interested in seats on the planning board.
Well,
right?
I can just say that when the last time
Last time we did.
you had one more applicant than there were open seats.
Okay.
So I don't.
He's already missed 4 consecutive.
He's missed more than 4 consecutive, but 4 consecutive regular meetings.
Okay.
And
One of
he's
them
and
is
he's due to miss another 4.
2 months.
Another 4.
Yeah, I mean,
So 4, and then whatever.
there's
he
only one
missed
meeting in
before.
January, which is why I'm hedging. So I'm looking at the calendar behind you.
Yeah.
The
So
green squares.
3 more,
3 more.
we'll just say.
So we got
3 more.
2 months plus the other meetings that he's missed throughout
Correct.
the year. And how many of those were there?
The other meetings throughout the year. Now he had prior to his trip, he had regular attendance.
And did he bring that to anyone's attention that he was leaving?
He sent an email to the planning board where he said, "I'm on the airplane right now."
Yeah.
And he's the chairman,
Correct.
correct?
You're kind of leaving everybody in the dark when you're the chairman and you take off.
So maybe we should, I know how I feel about this, but maybe we should wait for the planning board to give us their
That's my gut feeling.
recommendation.
If they're gonna make a recommendation, it'd be nice to hear.
And the other thing I would say, and I didn't read this section, but if you do receive a recommendation, you may disapprove the recommendation. The wording in the ordinance to me is a little vague, so I asked our town attorney to make sure we were doing it right. But if you do disapprove a recommendation, it must be a unanimous vote.
So we're not giving them a recommendation.
No, they're giving you a recommendation.
Okay.
But we could deal with Linda Graham's.
Yes.
We could do that tonight and then wait for their next meeting to see what they say about the other.
Right.
I think we should waive Linda Graham's.
Oh,
I mean,
do.
I think, you know,
Linda has been on that board for
A long-
long time, and
She's-
she's good
she
at
talked
it.
to me in the store one day and I was like, it's good to have a good diverse mix of people on the board and she's got a lot of experience, so. I'll make a motion that we waive the attendance requirements for Linda Graham for planning board.
Second?
Okay, I'll read the whole motion here. It's been moved and seconded to waive the attendance provision of the ordinance to establish the Tremont Planning Board in the case of Linda Graham for attendance between January 22nd, 2018 and January 22nd, 2019. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Not to get too legalistic here, the reason I included those dates in the draft motion are because if you read the ordinance, it says during the preceding 12-month period. So tomorrow is a different preceding 12-month period than today.
Mhm.
And so every day you're in a different preceding 12-month period, and Ms. Graham is absent. So it's a little tricky. And so what I've just, in order to simplify it and try to do what's best and what everyone's intent is just let this sit as is for the next 4 months or so. But if her attendance still is an issue in 4 months or so, that's when I would bring it back up again.
Makes sense.
And when is the next planning board meeting?
February 12th.
Okay.
Okay. We have someone who wants to purchase plots at Hillrest Cemetery. Kathy, I had the pronunciation in here someplace. Cummins?
Yeah.
Cummins?
Good job.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'll make a motion to authorize the town manager to sell lots 252, 253, 254, and 255 in Hillrest Cemetery to Kathy, say it again,
Cummins.
Kumetz.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded to authorize the town manager to sell lots 252, 253, 254, and 255 in Hillrest Cemetery to Kathy Cummins. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, item I, appointment of a tree warden. Okay, why?
I
Oh.
think it's necessary to have a tree warden, but
I just, does anybody here know what a tree warden does for the community?
I read the description, didn't look like most of what I saw applies. I mean, it said something about a lot of tag shade trees. Do we have any of those?
Well, this is one description, but also, they'll also recommend to people that have, say, private property, if they have a historic tree or an old tree, putting it on a list. I know Southwest Harbor has a ton of them on their list. And it just shows that, we have some trees in the community that we care about, the historic. You can look at old picture postcards of some areas of town and actually see some of these old trees that are still in existence today, it might be something that we kind of look into a little bit.
Do you think we need a tree warden to do it, or is it something, I mean, or is it gonna be?
It's
that-
it's a volunteer position. I mean, so it's at no cost to the town.
Okay.
Other than if you buy tags, I mean, you're talking $10, $20.
Okay, that was one of my other questions. Yeah.
They're just a little aluminum, tack, and they have, a lot of times they'll have numbers in them. And then if there's anything, in town that goes on construction related or utility related, the message is conveyed to the contractor that we're trying to preserve that tree or trees. And if there's any disease or anything like that, we look into that too.
I mean, do you think someone, I mean, sometimes we've had trouble recruiting people. That's the only thing.
Well, I mean, it's just one of them things. If you
Yep.
put something out there and say, you know, we'd be interested in having somebody, if they wanted to fill that position, then why, if you get somebody, that's great. But if you don't, you don't.
Yep.
And sometimes the tree warden will work with like a rec board or a conservation committee, if the town has one, to make recommendations for parks in the community as well. So, I mean, it could serve a couple different roles, really. You take an area like the Algerine Coast and say, you know, there's some stuff down there that we really like and we want to keep, and this is what it's going to take to maintain it. And it just might be something.
You don't
Put your
wanna
hand
hear
down, I don't wanna hear it.
No, I'll tell you what, that goddamn tree over next to the bridge, all right? My grandmother, 96, she doesn't even know what tree I'm talking about, but there's a lot of people in the community that absolutely PO'd that half-ass contractor and there's.
I know, I've talked with them. after we-
All right, you know what, so they could have saved that problem a long time ago. It could have averted that whole thing. Now, I think next year for the eighth grade fundraiser, they'll be cutting that tree up and selling firewood, you know? I guess it's a fun bonus.
Yeah, they assured me they didn't really disturb it much.
Well, we'll see.
That's a
I
matter
think
of
that could have
opinion.
averted
Well, that's what I was told when I spoke with them.
I think they've gotten a reality check now about that tree.
Yeah.
They certainly damaged it. So, that would have prevented this whole breakdown in communication at this case.
And you know, when Southwest Harbor had their like sidewalk construction project, the tree warden was brought out and they accommodated for several of the large trees on the sidewalk. They did some elevation adjustments, didn't cost much money, a little bit of extra gravel. But, you know, it's a pretty simple solution, really.
You put it out there,
Yeah.
see if anybody's
If
interested.
we can throw it out there, if someone jumps at it. That would be my only concern, is just attend it, you know, just someone who's
Try and get some-
willing to do it.
Maybe we'll have better luck with that than we do
I
in
don't know
sidewalks.
about trees. They make good lumber.
So you've been scoping out some homes, lumber, huh?
I'll make a motion that we try to find somebody to fill that position.
A second.
Okay, does it sound kind of like this? Been moved and seconded to request the town manager to draft a job description for a tree warden awarded. Does that sound good?
I think the description that's in here is fine. I mean,
There were a couple of them, weren't there?
Well, I included the Kennebunkport one, but that one is administering the shade tree program, which I don't.
I'd look at other towns
Yeah.
in Hancock County, because there's a lot of towns that do have it.
Why don't we have him look at drafting a description for the job? Sound good?
Yeah, and I like I said, other towns in the area.
Mhm.
Yep.
Because somewhere down southern Maine might not have the same.
Tell you what, I'm not sure exactly what your motion was, Mike. You want to redo it?
That
way
would
I'm
be
not putting
great.
Words in your mouth.
I'm gonna make a motion to ask the town manager to look at local towns and cities in the Hancock County area and see what they have for specifications for a tree warden, for a job description and work.
Is there a
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to request the town manager to look into local Hancock County towns to see what they have for descriptions of a tree warden. I believe those.
That's correct.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Item J, solar array ribbon cutting. I don't know if everyone's aware, the solar array is online. It's connected and generating electricity and putting it on.
It is.
Let's hope they get it very completely connected. They're gonna be putting a kiosk in somewhere in the town office, so you can actually look at historic data and live what it's doing.
Really?
That
That's
part hasn't been done
Mhm.
yet. But we're thinking about having some kind of a ceremony to kind of commemorate it. And I know that Rec Board is also talking about something.
They are no longer
Okay, so still,
trying to combine these two events. It was getting
Okay.
too tricky.
okay, yeah, that was definitely some scheduling issues. We came up with a date of February 23rd. It seems to be able to work for everyone. It's a Saturday. We can actually do some of it during daylight out there and see the array. I know there've been several people that have made interest in doing a little bit of speaking, voice some interest. So, and it's actually a pretty big deal. Our electricity can be generated by the sun, clean. We've got the biggest array right now on Mount Desert Island. And per capita, we're generating more solar electricity than anyone else in the state. So,
It is.
yeah, so it's a big step.
Yeah.
Who's putting this on the solar committee or the townspeople?
It's not gonna be an expense.
Okay, I see that having hors d'oeuvres and stuff. That's-
Well, I mean, I
I
had
guess there will be a little bit of that.
So the solar committee will take care of that?
I thought the town was gonna do it, usually doing something like that, but I suppose if it makes you happier, we could do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be concerned with the cost of that, at least
It's like
just for
some
the,
coffee and
yeah.
cookies and
Yeah, yeah.
nothing, not like a sit-down dinner kind of thing.
Does anyone have any suggestions? Okay, I guess at this point, we just kind of confirm the date, see.
I'll make a motion to confirm the date of the solar array ribbon cutting on February 23rd, 2019, from 12 to 2 p.m. at the solar array or town office.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to confirm the date of the solar array ribbon cutting on February 23rd, 2019, 12 o'clock to 2 p.m. at the solar array in town office. Any discussion?
What's that? Yeah. Can I, I'm confused. Who's paying for whatever incidental expenses are related?
The town.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, item K is the efficiency main ordinance, and I brought this up. We were looking into some other stuff going on. And efficiency main offers what they call, it's a pace lawns. And it's, if a property owner wants to do weatherization improvements, heating system upgrades, and all that, efficiency main offers a financing package that's tied to the property. It can be transferred if they sell it and all that, but basically, it's a means of efficiency main, helping people finance improvements on the housing, making them more efficient. And the only thing they require to do it is whatever town the people are in need to have passed an ordinance.
This is kind of like what you did. Show up, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea.
yeah,
I mean, if somebody wants to make their place more energy efficient,
yeah. And basically, they can't use that financing mechanism unless we pass an ordinance. And all it does, the town's requirements at minimum are to hand out pamphlets.
this is like changing your light bulbs and upgrading your
Yeah,
heating and
yeah.
insulation.
I just had my shop done, the lighting in my shop. They come in and estimate it. It come out to $5,800 and my total pay is $1,300.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this,
All new LED
yeah,
lights.
and what would
so-
happen, Howdy, with this one, if this was passed, you could actually finance that 1,500 through this program.
Wow.
We can't
Yeah.
do it. So I mean, it just gives people an option, if they don't have the cash to do it up front, they
Yeah.
can do that. And I didn't realize we didn't have that until I started looking into something else, so.
No, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, that's great.
Make a motion to request the town manager to draft an efficiency name ordinance.
Second,
Been moved and seconded to request the town manager to draft an efficiency main ordinance. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, your turn, first town manager report.
All right. Major activities over the last 2 weeks, researching a lot of the recycling changes. I had a meeting with Tim and Beth Gott, trying to get a quote for a structure and some locations. One of the things that we discussed was one of the locations that we had been, you had requested that I look into, was the area next to the ice skating rink. So according to the tax maps, that road that is on the ice skating rink is actually right on the line. There's no land on the other side. That land is owned by the estate of David Minkton's. And so I don't think there's any space there to put the recycling containers over there. And so we're now looking at the upper half of the Murphy lot across from the school bus garage, and then still this location. And so trying to get an estimate
when
on
you
that
say the
structure.
upper half, would that be the section that's currently as you go in, it's gravelled in, or is it just past that?
It's across from the bus garage.
The part
So
that's-
there's like some underbrush, and then there's another little parking
Right.
area.
yeah.
That would be way out of the way. I mean, in a good way.
Oh, okay.
That's my preference.
In a good way.
Yeah. That I'm glad you clarified that. Yeah, that's currently where I'm leaning. The only downside there is that we store some floats there in the winter, and so we have to find a new place for those floats. But I think we can do that.
We'll juggle them around sometime.
Yeah, and the floats don't take up a whole lot. So
Now, what about the piece of property that you had mentioned that someone was interested in?
Mhm.
I thought that abutted against,
No,
it
it
doesn't.
doesn't.
There's someone who owns
there's
a little
two
bit.
lots in between
Okay,
what I'm calling the lunch property, which is
Okay.
the tax acquired property.
Yep.
There's two Minkton's lots, and then there's the
So the town does have
Skating rink.
property past that?
yeah,
or-
but it's very small.
Yeah.
I don't think it's big enough for this.
no, I just thought it abutted against it as
That
well.
would've
I was
been nice.
That would be
envisioning.
easy, right?
So would it be on the other side of that house that's there, the trailer that's right there?
I haven't-
No, it's on.
Too bad we
Side
couldn't,
of the
we
road.
couldn't
Oh,
trade with,
There's
Like,
a
there would
couple-
be two
there's like
lots.
3 narrow lots.
Yeah,
out there.
okay.
trade,
Yeah.
trade with,
There's a skating rink, 2 lots, and then the next one, and then a mobile home.
Okay.
I haven't whacked around in the bushes enough to look for surveying stakes.
Yeah.
It would-
it'd be a nice little property trade if we could trade with them for some on this side.
David's is in probate, but
Yeah, I don't know.
same-
It's
exact same size lots. You bought it.
Oh, really?
That would be handy because we already have the road there.
Other activities, we've received some of the insurance paperwork from New Yankee Builders for the library building project. I still haven't received it all, so the first payment still hasn't been made. It wasn't on, you might have noticed it wasn't on the warrant, so it'll be another 2 weeks until that can get paid. And then this was a especially thick packet, so preparing for today's meeting took a lot of time. Some minor things I was working on, updating that municipal energy priorities resolution, working on the plastic bag and polystyrene ordinances. I had a meeting with Misha Maitar from Maine Coast Heritage Trust about the Seal Cove Fishway. She has submitted a letter of interest for a federal grant. She's not too optimistic about it, but it can't hurt to apply. Of course, the federal government is shut down right now, so they originally were planning to have responses out by mid-February, but I don't think that's going to happen. Finalizing the audit, been very immersed in the budget work. That's actually should be a major thing I was working on. Lots of budget stuff. I've been working on a draft emergency operations plan. This is something that the emergency coordinator for Hancock County had requested from the town. We currently don't have an official one. We have a lot of drafts from a lot of different, but anyway, updating one, getting an updated one. I attended a planning board meeting. I've been contacting those on the Hillrest waitlist to sell plots. I've been doing some of the just early pit planning for the solar array ribbon cutting, just so I could have something to put in the memo. And as Kevin mentioned, the array was turned on January 17th. Researching the tree warden position, again, just for the packet. I attended a speed radar training. So for that radar that we got, we now have received it, and I have been trained on how to download the data off of it. We can also put within a limited way, we can put custom messages on there for if you're speeding above a certain limit. So if you want to think of some messages to
Something
put out to
witty.
people. So far, I just came up with "Give me a break," but if there's more out there, yeah. Unfortunately, Emera won't allow us to attach it to a power pole, so we have to put it on our own structure. So, but Jimmy came up with something that I think will work. I did a full audit of the vending machine revenues. I had a meeting with a man named Gordon Beck from A Climate to Thrive about having an electric vehicle. They have a grant to put electric vehicle charging stations on MDI. And so this will be an agenda item on the February 19th agenda. There should also be one connected with the solar array. And so if you guys want one, then, well, you'll get to talk about it on February 19th.
Is the one with the solar array, is that part of the whole package? We're gonna get that anyway?
Yeah,
That's the idea.
Okay,
yeah,
that's what I
we
thought.
still haven't decided where to put it. We need to do that.
Yeah.
It's a discussion we need to have.
That's
It'd
on.
be one hookup or for multiple vehicles?
The one with the array is one charger.
We just need a spot for someone to pull off.
Unfortunately, it takes a few hours. Well, I don't want to get into this too much because it'll be on a future agenda, but it takes a few hours to charge. It's not like going to the gas station and pumping up for 5 minutes. It's like a 2 or 3 or 4 hour period
You need one somewhere close to the array, I'm assuming.
It doesn't matter.
because it's all net metering.
We can discuss it next time. Part of the discussion was maybe where the Island Explorer bus picks people up. Maybe a good place to be.
Ordering lots of sand and salt. At this point, I think our sand supply will get us through the rest of winter, so fingers crossed there. Working with the attorneys who are filing the 80K action for the land use violation. I attended the Tremont Road Bridge progress updates. Worked on getting an estimate for a garage on the site of the Wharf House. I haven't forgotten about our Wharf House. There have been a lot of contractors who have said that they would be getting me estimates and then have not gotten me estimates. So it's been really tough to pin someone down, but I'm optimistic about this one. I'm trying to recruit a new health officer. Our current health officer is not able to be our health officer anymore. I had a discussion with an MDOT official about increasing the grants that we have already received for the wharf reconstruction. This will be an agenda item for you, but I first want to bring it to the Harbor Committee so that they have a recommendation for you. So that's on the Harbor Committee agenda on January 31st, and then it'll be on your agenda on February 4th. And then just this morning, I attended a League of Towns meeting up in Ellsworth. The office staff finalized the audits. They also got the new tax maps on the website. They sent out the FY17 impending foreclosure notices. There were 6 of them. I also just want to, this is reminding me of something that came up earlier in tonight's meeting. You might have seen that there was a negative variance in the revenues on interest lien costs on the audit, meaning that we collected less interest than we expected. That's actually a good thing because it means more people are paying their taxes on time and we're staying on top of them. So when I say there were only 6 of them, that's good. It's been a lot higher in the past. Katie has prepared the nomination papers, informed incumbents who are up for re-election, and placed an ad in the paper. The nomination papers will be available on February 1st. The Bureau of Motor Vehicles updated their vehicle classification, so that meant we had to do an update to Trio. And then one of our part-time office staffers, I'm sure you all know Beatty, has requested to reduce her hours. So she's actually going to be working just 16 hours a week from now on, but she's been very flexible and is willing to work around others' vacation and sick time. So Public Works, as you might imagine, lots and lots and lots of plowing, and then post-storm truck maintenance, that kind of stuff. This has been a long time coming. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that the 1995 Top Kick is just about dead. It has a serious oil leak. The guys managed to get it up to George Caldwell so he could take a look at it. And he said the cost of a repair is much more than the truck is worth. So fortunately, this was always just a backup plow truck at this point. We have not been relying on it for some time. So at some point, we'll have to figure out what to do with it. I'm
What did he say the cost of repair would be?
in the $8,000 to $10,000 range.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, my guess is this will end up being a surplus property discussion, but a discussion that we will have. And then Jimmy and with me attended the speed radar training, so that we know so he can learn how it's mounted and that kind of thing. Our harbor master plowing and then working on the trucks. He's also, at the request of the harbor committee, done an analysis of whether it would be cost effective to put out more moorings and transient floats. I referred to this a little bit earlier. If these things make money and there's demand for them, then it might be beneficial to do those. It's not an instantaneous return on investment, though. It does take a few years to make your money back. Preparing for the January 31st harbor committee meeting. He had a meeting with Marine Patrol. Going over some stuff with them, working on the town boat, and then renewing his CDL, including his medical certification. And then some priorities over the next couple weeks. Continuing to try to find a new animal control officer. If anyone knows of anyone who might be interested, $3,000 a year. Accepting applications.
Just not enough money.
Yeah. Lots of budget work. That's definitely my top priority.
Buy golden cube for that.
Preparing for recycling changes, continuing to survey the roads. I started this project a little while ago, so go out and just look at every single road. And we have a new software program that allows us to input the data about the roads, and it spits out some recommendations of road preventative maintenance and then long-term capital improvements. So if you see me driving around very slowly with my emergency lights on, I'm not in trouble, but I'm trying to get a
Go look for
survey
the deer.
of the roads. Yeah, look for the deer. And then I'll put in a plug in for the ice fishing derby, which is on February 2nd. That's all I got for you.
Okay, thanks for that. Any questions? Okay. Suggestions for the next meeting. When did you say he's going to talk about the EV chargers? That wasn't the second, was it?
Your next meeting is on the 4th, but the 19th.
19.
That's on the agenda for the 19th.
Okay. I was going to say, why don't we talk about where to place the other one too?
At the same time.
At the same
Yeah,
time,
that's my plan.
Okay, next meeting date.
Hey, I got a lot more to say, but I know you're in a hurry.
Go for it. Keith.
Okay, thanks for mentioning the Derby, Chris, appreciate it, that you come. Second of all, I don't know if any of you guys get Downey's Magazine. I'm sure Islander is our publication of choice, but two of our Tremont firefighters are featured in this next month's Downey's Magazine. So, for the rescue a year ago. And then, but I would like to see an update of the bridge on the agenda each month. They're gonna close the current bridge down on February 4th. It's gonna shut down until August 29th. So,
Is that be that long?
Will that be posted publicly?
It is already posted publicly.
Well, I mean, at in the paper.
That's up to them.
You
They
would-
sent,
contractor or?
I don't think there's a public notice, which is what
They-
which is what DOT pays for. But we can make sure it goes in the paper.
It
Yeah.
should be.
they sent out a public notice today. I don't know if they paid for it to be placed in the paper. It is currently posted on the bulletin board upstairs.
Well, then we probably have something that looks like that that's in as an ad, but we'll have both. We'll try to-
But I think it's important that the selectmen, but after this whole, we didn't come into town and kill our tree business, I think that there should be, at least maybe not every meeting, but once a month, there should be some type of, so everybody kind of knows what's going on.
You're asking to have their engineer or someone present to represent.
Well, I mean, Chris has been attending their meetings, but if they could give you a letter, I feel that the public meetings we had, might as well forget everything they told you. They're gonna have the bridge shut down for 16 weeks, and now it's, February 4th,
Well, that's-
till August 29th.
Yeah, I haven't heard those dates either.
Yeah,
That's why I
it's,
was questioning.
you know.
It's
Well,
definitely
that was
changed.
6 weeks on the Pleasant Creek Bridge this summer too.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what we're told on that one.
So, but I don't know, I think it would be nice, you know, especially from our standpoint originally we agreed that they couldn't have it shut down during the heavy chiller season, and they 100% have it up and running. Now it looks like their only concern is having it done before school starts.
That's,
Yeah. But, so if that's all, I know that's a lot of work on you tonight, but I don't know if it's all possible to get a regular update of like how it's going, when they're gonna start the sidewalks on Marsh Road, Flatiron, just to have, I'd like to be in the loop. And I'm not, Mike and I attended their last meeting, and they made it very clear that it wasn't a public meeting, that we didn't have any input, although Mike and I did, or myself and another person certainly made our opinions heard.
I think it's important. I agree with Heath on this, that going forward, it'd be nice to know where they stand so that if people ask us, we can relay the message. And as a business owner, it's going to be nice to know when things are shut down so I can accommodate for it. And I'm sure there's other businesses in here that would feel the same way.
People move boats around here a lot, it makes quite a difference.
Did they say it wasn't a public meeting? Is that what you said?
No, but I will say that after we attended the meeting, they have, from what I understand, hired an arborist, and they're gonna study the tree, they're gonna figure out what's wrong with the tree. So they are taking actions, but they clearly didn't take any fault or admit any fault, but I just think it's our town, our community, it's DOT and a contractor that has no contacts to this town. I think we need to have our thumb on this button, and I don't, that's just my opinion.
We've got no way to say anything to them. We don't really know what's going on.
Did they make any comment when they're gonna start on the other bridge, since that was supposed to happen?
Right at the deal, well, they actually had to wait till after, I don't know, the holidays, but one of those, the one in fall.
They said that one's gonna be really quick. They said
Columbus,
Well, that's, they're
Supposedly.
gonna shut the road off and just,
just rip and tear and go.
This one's completed, they're gonna shut down. Well, you'll see, I'm sure Chris is at the meeting, but then
Okay,
they'll
but they-
bypass through Manson.
they still plan on waiting until that one's done before they start the other one.
They
Is
haven't
that-
kept any of their promises yet.
Okay.
Probably.
I don't know if this offer will continue to stand, but the state resident on the project, Tim Hebert, has offered in the past to attend select board meetings and give you, and answer any questions that you might have. So if you would like, I could reach out to him and ask for him to attend one meeting per month.
I think that'd be great.
That's a good idea.
I think it's a good idea.
Does somebody want to say that in a motion so I have a little more strength when I go to Tim?
Make a motion to ask the town manager to reach out to the DOT project manager and invite him to selectmen's meetings once a month to keep us updated.
Second.
Good enough.
Been moved and seconded to ask the town manager to request the project manager for the, this Clark Ridge, isn't it? Clark Ridge Construction,
Sure.
to attend monthly selectmen meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any more suggestions? Okay, next meeting date.
Make a motion to confirm the date of the next meeting for Monday, February 4th, 2019 at 6 PM at the town office.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to have our next meeting Monday, February 4th at 6 PM. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Motion to adjourn? Second.
All those in favor?
Let's say, cost, I just want to know, so I could-